Welcome to this week's message from Anthem Church. We're so glad you're joining us online today. Our prayer is that this message encourages you, strengthens your faith, and helps you take your next step in following Jesus.
Thank you for having me, opening your home. It has felt like home this weekend. It has been incredibly sweet for Gareth and I to be here. He's not here because he's at Westville, and that's the beauty of having multiple campuses, is that we get to move around and share our spaces with another whole community, which is incredible. I want to start by saying that if you are new to this community, you are in the right place. And this is how I know that you're in the right place. Because like Jack said, I didn't come into this church space with any aspirations of leading a church. I didn't come in with even a deep relationship with Jesus. But we ended up accidentally leading a campus, which is a story for another day. And now we since planted a church. But we were invited into rooms and spaces with other pastors that I knew I didn't belong in. I was not supposed to be in those spaces. I felt awkward and odd and strange. And how on earth did a farm girl from Crichton end up in Pretoria in pastors' lounges? It didn't make any sense to me. And I probably wore my awkwardness very obviously on my face. But every time Richard and Jax were in that room that I was in, they went out of their way to come and greet me, to ask me how I am, to ask about our family, to ask how his church was going. They see people. And I know that that is a value of this church, but I want to say before it was a value of this church, it is who they are. It is who they have been since I've known them. And so you are in the right place. Because in this church, you will be seen, you will be celebrated, you will be loved, you will be pastored, you will be cared for, you will be taught, you will be shepherded, and you are in the right place. So thank you, Rich and Jax. I've been watching from a distance. It's such a pleasure to watch your church from a distance. Because I love your pastors so much, I love you so much. And so for years, we've watched from a distance. And we pop in when we come on holiday, because, we have to come down to the beach every now and then. We pop in and we just scope out what's happening in Anthem. And since we knew that we were coming to come and share with you, I've been listening to your messages. I've been praying for you for a few weeks, and I am loving it. I am loving it. To be made beautiful is incredible. I have actually got FOMO. I want to be part of this church. And then last night, the team set up this most beautiful, exquisite table, and Friday night. And then I had the delight of walking into your ladies' bathroom. Carrie happened to be in the bathroom when I walked in, and I did a pirouette. And I felt really comfortable to do a pirouette in your ladies' bathroom because one of your things you're talking about is to laugh and to dance. And if you walk into the ladies' bathroom and you don't feel like you want to do a pirouette, maybe you would rather do a cartwheel, but you've got to do something. It is incredible. You are living what you are preaching. And I felt so special in that bathroom. I took selfies and sent it to my friends. I was like, this bathroom is amazing. We meet in a school hall, and our bathroom is not amazing. In fact, we have to scrub the urinal before anybody arrives on a Sunday because it serves both a primary school and a high school, and it's not great. So I took photos. So one day, when we have our own building, we are going to make a ladies' bathroom that women want to pirouette and take selfies in. So you're building, and it's a little messy, but it's beautiful. It's being made beautiful. You're planting, you're laughing, you're dancing, and it is a life made beautiful. I love a beautiful table. I don't think you guys know this. I love a beautiful table. It is like, it makes me come alive. So Friday night, we walk into Rich and Jackie's home, and there's a beautiful table. Last night, we walk in here, and there was a beautiful table. So I started to ask God, what am I going to share with Anthem? And he said, you've got to talk about the table. Talk to them about the table. And it's so dear to my heart. I lay a table any chance I get. We eat dinner at the table every single night. If our kids now that are in high school, they've got sport, it doesn't matter. Even if there's just two of us, this past week it was just Joel, our 8-year-old, and myself. We lay the table, we set the table, we eat at the table. Because the table is central to everything in my home. So today I want to invite you to a beautiful table. So imagine with me that on the stage there's a beautiful table laden. It's got candles, it's got flowers, it's got whatever things make you come alive. When you see that table, you just want to pull up a seat. And a feast is waiting. There's a feast, and you're invited to join that feast. And your friends, your favorite people, your family that lives far away, everybody that you love is going to come and sit around this table with you. Can you imagine the table? I'm going to talk about 4 different tables. But I'm going to anchor this in Psalm 16, verse 11, and it's not going to come up on the screen. It says, you made known to me the path of life. In your presence, in God's presence, is fullness of joy. Yeah. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Yeah. That word presence, in your presence, is fullness of joy. That word presence is face. In your face is fullness of joy. In God's face. That means proximity. That means closeness. That means pulling up a chair at the table and looking God in the eye. That is fullness of joy. In your presence, in your face, in proximity to God is fullness of joy. So the first table, the title of my message, did I tell you that already? The table changes everything. The table changes everything. So the first table I want to invite you to is the table made beautiful. I have some photos of when we renovated our house in 2021. We were still living in our home when we renovated, and it was absolute chaos. 6 days a week, people would arrive at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they would leave by about 7 o'clock at night, often. And we had to wash our feet before we climbed into our beds. We called it the Hobbit hole. We covered the passage and we crawled through a little hole to try and reduce the dust. 3 children. I have photos of Joel having to bath in a bucket. It was absolutely awful. And in the midst of this, it's August. August in Pretoria is terrible. It's dry, it's brown, everything's frosted, it's freezing. I didn't have a couch or a warm place or a space that felt soft and comfortable. And then I got COVID. And then we were reduced to having to stay at home. The children were not allowed to school, and they had to go to online schooling. It was terrible. It was an actual nightmare. I really don't want to ever go back to that time in my life. And Sunday came, and we obviously weren't allowed to go to church. And church is the highlight for our family. So now we're not allowed to go to church. And I was having a full-on pity party. And I had a little pep talk with myself. And if you don't have pep talks with yourself, you really should. I had a little pep talk with myself, and I said, you can choose to make this day miserable, or you can choose to get up out of this bed and lay a beautiful table and celebrate the moment. And so I got up. I put on red lipstick. I did my hair, I had a shower, I got dressed up, and I laid a beautiful table on what is now our patio, what was then chaos. in our garden. You can see in the picture that our furniture is scattered around the garden. The garden looks awful, and I used a white tablecloth because nothing felt clean. Nothing felt beautiful. Nothing felt special. And our family had a feast. I don't know what we ate. It doesn't matter what we ate, but we chose that in the midst of this hard and horrible thing, we are going to celebrate life and God's goodness, and we are just going to give it all our best. And we live that because we believe that moments should be celebrated. We don't need a reason to celebrate. And Jax did such a great job recently of talking about the joy on the journey. And that's what the joy on the journey looks like. It looks like laying a beautiful table and celebrating God's goodness, no matter what your circumstances look like. So the table made beautiful to me is the Psalm 23 table. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You, God, prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. That's joy on the journey. A table in the presence of whatever circumstances you may be facing. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and your love will follow me all the days of my life. You've been building, I don't know what your circumstances are, but the invitation from heaven is to take a seat at the table. God makes a table. He lays a table for us, and his invitation is just to accept the invitation to sit down at that table, no matter your circumstances, and look him in the face, proximity. In his presence, you will find the fullness of joy. There's a quote that I love, and I share it with my children all the time. It goes like this: the difference between an ordeal and an adventure is your attitude. Choose your attitude, because you might be in the worst circumstances. You might be facing terrible diagnosis, financial crisis, divorce, whatever it may be. And I know those are hard, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but you can choose your attitude, and you can choose to go face to face with Jesus. And even in that space, you can find joy, because joy is found in God's presence. The second table I'd like to invite you to is the table of remembrance. And this is the table that reconciles us to God. We never want to assume in church that everybody knows God, that everybody is in right standing with God, that everybody's even heard about God. Because there's a lost and broken world out there that people don't know this Jesus that loves them so much. So there's an invitation always to the table that reconciles us to God. And Jesus taught it like this. While they were eating, Jesus took bread and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is the blood of my covenant, which is poured out for the forgiveness of sins." Now at the table, Jesus was with his disciples, his closest friends. He'd spent 3 years with them. These were the people he loved. And as he took the bread, he knew what was about to happen. He knew that his body was about to be beaten. He knew that as he took the cup, that blood that the wine represented was about to run down the sides of his body and drip off the ends of his toes. He knew that those people that he was sharing this significant meal with were about to betray him and deny him and reject him. And yet, he said, "This is what I'm going to do for you." And I want you to remember this always. I'm about to do something incredibly difficult because I love you so much. No matter if you've betrayed me, no matter if you've denied me, no matter how much you have messed up, Jesus invites you to the table that represents his body that was tortured for the forgiveness of your sins, and his blood that was poured out as a representative of the washing that he does to save our souls. Jesus invites us to take a seat at the table that reconciles us to God. If Jesus hadn't done that, we would have to be doing jumping through all kinds of hoops in order to be reconciled to God. But because of that table, the communion table, the table of reconciliation, we are reconciled to God, and he invites us to do this whenever you remember me. You don't have to wait for Anthem to have communion. Communion is a moment that you can do by yourselves, with your family, with your loved ones, in your life groups. Get together, remember God's goodness, and as you do that, it turns your face towards the face of heaven. Proximity, closeness. In God's face, you will find fullness of joy. He invites us to take a seat at the table. The third table I'd like to invite you to is the table of communitas. And even my iPad says it's a spelling mistake because you would assume it's supposed to say the table of community. But I want to introduce you to the concept of communitas. It is a word. Alan Hirsch coined it like this: a group of disciples formed around the person and mission of Jesus, radically committed to Jesus, each other, and advancing God's kingdom. So we can disqualify ourselves because we can think we're not disciples, but let's unpack that. A disciple is anyone that has chosen to follow Jesus. So if you have put your faith and trust in Jesus, are a disciple. So us as the disciples, we are being formed. That is our becoming. Who are we becoming? We are being formed. We are being changed into God's likeness. As Christians, we're not called to stay the way that we are. We are called to be transformed into the likeness of Jesus. And our formation happens best together. And we're being formed around the person and the mission of Jesus. So we've got to be close to Jesus. We've got to know about him in order to become like him. And then we get to go on mission. That is the adventure. That is the saying yes. Maybe you've got to say yes to serving in kids' church. Maybe you've got to say yes to joining the parking team. Maybe you've got to say yes to giving financially. Maybe you've got to say yes to just showing up next week because you don't really come to church. That is the invitation to be committed to the body of Christ. So communitas, in a world that is more isolated than ever. We are more connected. Our devices connect us. We are able to communicate with anyone, anywhere, anytime. But our loneliness, the stats of loneliness are sky high. We are more connected, and yet we are somehow more isolated. The church is about to have its finest hour because this is the place where you can find deep connection. And in deep connection and trust and in the face of God, we can start to be changed and transformed. We can find safety and community and love and a place to belong and a place to share our burdens. Communitas is a beautiful word, and I want you to take hold of that word and say, I am going to lean into communitas because this is where I'm going to get to know Jesus. I'm going to get to know myself. I'm going to be transformed into the likeness of Christ. I'm going to become the best version of myself. I'm going to give my gifts and my talents so that other people can get to know this Jesus. I'm going to join a life group because I want to know more about this Jesus. I'm going to join a serve team because when I lay down my life and go on mission for Jesus, something changes in me. the invitation is to join the table of communitas, and that table is the reconciliation to each other. So we reconcile to God, and then we can be reconciled to one another at the table of communitas. So one of the things Gareth and I want to leave you with this weekend is this statement. In a world that is raging and marked by isolation, you, Anthem Church, are called to be recalibrated for reconciliation. God is recalibrating this church for reconciliation. Reconciliation to Him. That means that you're going to be inviting the people that don't know Jesus to come to church so they can be reconciled to Him. And then you're going to be reconciled to one another. And KZN needs it. South Africa needs you to participate in this reconciliation story. And God is going to do incredibly, abundantly, exceedingly more than you can hope, dream, or imagine. The fourth table is not an invitation to take a seat. The fourth table is an invitation to get out of the way. The fourth table is the table that needs flipping. Some of us are sitting at tables that we shouldn't be sitting at. So Jesus went into the temple and He flipped some tables. And we can misunderstand the story. We can see Jesus as an angry, vengeful, whatever. But actually, this story is rooted in Jesus' kindness. So Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. It is written, He said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers. And then the blind and the lame came to Him at the temple, and He healed them. So what's really going on here is those tables were preventing people from coming in to worship God. They were actually standing in the way of people coming to be in God's presence. They were blocking the proximity to God. And Jesus' heart was to make sure that there's always a way for people to get to the Father. He is there to point the way for people to get to the Father. So He went into the room and He flipped those tables and He chased them out. Why? So that the blind and the lame could come in. What tables are you sitting at that need to be flipped? What is blocking you from entering into the presence of God? What in your life could be blocking someone else from entering into God's presence? What tables do you need to flip? I'll give you some suggestions. Perhaps you're sitting at the table of busyness. Sounds like an oxymoron, because if you're busy, you don't sit at tables very often. Maybe you're too busy for God. Busyness is blocking your worship. Maybe you're sitting at the table of selfishness. I'm just here on a Sunday, like I used to be. Come late, leave early, don't want to serve. I just want to be fed. Maybe you're sitting at the table of greed. Maybe you're sitting at the table of isolation. Maybe you're so lonely, but you refuse to get out of your comfort zone and enter into community. Maybe you're sitting at the table of offense. And offense is blocking you from worshiping God. Are you offended with the church? Are you offended with your friend? Are you offended with your brother? Offense stops us from worshiping God. Maybe you're sitting at the table of bitterness. I want to invite you to allow Jesus to come and flip those tables. Just get up from that table. You don't need to sit there any longer. The invitation is to the beautiful tables that God has laid out for us. Don't sit at the wrong table, because He has an adventure for you. He has a story for your life. It doesn't matter how old you are. If you're not dead, you're not done. So God has something for you to participate in. He has something for you to offer. Don't sit at the tables that are blocking you from worshiping God. And don't sit at the tables that are blocking other people from worshiping God. So as I close, I'll leave you with these thoughts. A life made beautiful. A life made beautiful is found in God's presence. A life made beautiful doesn't wait for perfection, but finds joy no matter the circumstances. A life made beautiful takes time to be with Jesus and regularly remembers His finished work. A life made beautiful chooses communitas over the comfort or conflict. A life made beautiful doesn't let anything stand in the way of worshiping God. Amen.
Thank you for watching today's message. If you'd like to take your next step with us, get connected, or find out more about Anthem, visit our website or reach out through the Church Center app. We'd love to walk the journey with you.